أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
After reciting the Tashahhud, Ta'awuz and Surah Al-Fatiha, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih V, Ayyadahullah Ta'ala binasrihi al-Aziz stated, whilst narrating the accounts of the companions who took part in the Battle of Badr, the era of Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and the various incidents that took place during his time were being mentioned. Today I will mention the advancement towards Syria during his Khilafat. Once Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu had subdued the rebellious apostates, and law and order had been established in Arabia, he considered fighting the Byzantines, who was an enemy that was carrying out attacks from across the border. They would carry out attacks and would often cause trouble to the Muslims. However, until then, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu had not yet informed anyone of this. And Syria, as we know it today, was part of the Byzantine Empire, and its kings were given the title of Caesar. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was still contemplating over this when Hazrat Shurahbil bin Hasana came to him and sat beside him and stated that, O Khalifa of the Messenger of Allah, may peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, are you considering attacking Syria? Upon this, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu replied that yes, I am considering it, but I have not yet informed anyone of this. And is there a particular reason for you to ask this? Upon this, Hazrat Shurahbil submitted that yes, O Khalifa of the Messenger of Allah, may peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. He stated that I saw in a dream that you were crossing a difficult mountainous area along with your companions. You then climbed a high peak and turned to the people, and some of your companions were with you as well. Thereafter you descended from the peak and entered an extremely fertile land which consisted of crops, springs, townships and fortresses, and addressed the Muslims saying that attack the idolaters, and I guarantee you victory and the acquisition of the spoils of war. Upon this, the Muslims launched their attack, and I was also part of this army with a flag in my hand. I approached a township, and its residents sought my protection, and I granted them protection, and then returned to you as you had approached an enormous fortress. You were granted victory, and they sought to reconcile with you. Following this, a throne was placed for you, and you took a seat upon it. Thereafter, someone said to you that Allah the Almighty has granted you victory and has helped you. As such, you should express your gratitude to your Lord and continue to obey Him. This person then recited the following verses: إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا. That is, when the help of Allah comes and the victory, and thou seest men entering the religion of Allah in troops, glorify thy Lord with His praise and seek His forgiveness. Surely He is oft returning with mercy. He then stated that following this I woke up. It was a long dream. And having heard this dream, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu stated that may your eyes feel comfort as you have seen a good dream, and it will prove to be good inshallah. Following this, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu stated that in this dream you have given the glad tidings of victory, as well as informed me of my demise. And as Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu uttered these words, his eyes filled with tears, and he said that with regards to crossing the mountainous area and climbing the peak and looking down towards the people means that we will face hardships in dealing with this army, and their soldiers will also face difficulties. Following this, we will then gain victory and control. And as far as descending from the peak and heading towards the fertile land is concerned, which comprised of blossoming crops, springs, townships and fortresses, it refers to us enjoying more ease than before, and filled with success and prosperity, and we will be granted a more fertile land. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu then further stated that as far as my commandment to the Muslims of attacking the enemy and guaranteeing victory and the spoils of war is concerned, it refers to me encouraging the Muslims to fight and to advance towards the lands of the idolaters. And with regards to the flag you were carrying with which you entered a township, whose inhabitants sought your protection, and you granted it, this refers to you being one of the chiefs who will conquer this area, and Allah the Almighty will grant you victory. And as for the fortress which Allah the Almighty enabled us to conquer, refers to the area which Allah the Almighty will make me victorious over. And the interpretation of the throne on which you saw me take a seat is that Allah the Almighty will grant me honor, and He will exalt my ranks and disgrace the idolaters. And as far as the man is concerned who instructed me to do good deeds and obey Allah the Almighty and recited Surah Nasr before me, he actually informed me of my demise in this manner. When this very chapter was revealed to the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, he understood that he was being informed of his demise in this chapter. Thus, this is how Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu interpreted this dream. In any case, when Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu decided to prepare an army for the conquest of Syria, he gathered Hazrat Umar, Hazrat Usman, Hazrat Ali, Hazrat Abdul Rahman bin Auf, Hazrat Talha, Hazrat Zubair, Hazrat Sa'd bin Abi Waqas, Hazrat Abu Ubaidah bin al-Jarrah radiyallahu ta'ala anhum, and various other prominent companions from among the Muhajirin and the Ansar who partook in the Battle of Badr, and also various other companions. When all of these companions came before him, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu stated that the bounties of Allah are innumerable, and one's actions alone cannot attain them. Thus you ought to praise Allah the Almighty profusely, for He has bestowed His favours upon you. He gathered you all on one kalima, our Islamic creed, and established peace between you, and granted you guidance through Islam, and removed Satan from you. Now, Satan no longer has any hope of you associating partners with God and worshipping anyone besides Allah. Today, the Arabs are united as one ummah, and belong to the same mother and father in terms of ancestry. I am of the opinion to send them to Syria in order to fight against the Byzantines, and whoever dies among them will attain martyrdom. And Allah the Almighty has prepared an excellent reward for those who perform virtuous deeds. And those among them who remain alive, they would have remained alive in a state whereby they were defending Islam, and He would be deserving of Allah the Almighty's rewards, which He grants to those who strive in His way. This is my opinion, and every one of you should present his suggestions based on his opinion on this matter. Thus, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu sought their suggestions, and upon this, Hazrat Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu stood up and stated that all praise belongs to Allah, who grants His blessings and grace to whomsoever He wills. By God, you have always excelled us in whichever aspect of goodness we try to surpass you in. This is the special grace and blessings of Allah the Almighty, and He grants it to whomsoever He pleases. By Allah, I wanted to meet you for this very purpose which you have just mentioned. However, Allah the Almighty so willed that I was unable to say this to you. However, you have now mentioned this yourself, and indeed your opinion is correct, and Allah has granted you insight about the right path. Following this, Hazrat Abdul Rahman bin Auf, Hazrat Usman bin Affan, Hazrat Talha, Hazrat Zubair, Hazrat Saad, Hazrat Abu Ubaidah, Hazrat Sayyid bin Zaid, and Hazrat Ali radiyallahu anhum, and the rest of the Muhajirin and Ansar present in the gathering agreed with Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu's opinion, and they submitted that we will listen to you and obey you, and we shall not disobey your orders, and will respond to your call. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu then stood once more to address the people. He praised Allah the Almighty, which He is most worthy of, and then sent salutations upon the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. He then stated that, O people, Allah the Almighty has most certainly blessed you immensely in granting you Islam, and granted you honor by way of your jihad, and granted you superiority over other religions by way of Islam. Therefore, O servants of Allah, prepare to fight the Byzantines in Syria. I am now going to appoint your leaders who will take command of the army. Obey Allah, and do not disobey your leaders, and keep your intentions purely for the sake of attaining the pleasure of Allah, and continue to excel in your character and conduct, and eat and drink in a proper manner, and Allah the Almighty supports those who are pious and do good. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu then gave instructions to Hazrat Bilal radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who announced that, O people, go forth towards the Byzantine enemy in Syria, and the commander of the Muslims shall be Hazrat Khalid bin Said. In relation to the conquest in Syria, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu first of all sent Hazrat Khalid bin Said. And according to one narration, when Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu returned to Medina after performing the Hajj, he sent Hazrat Khalid bin Said with an army towards Syria in 13 Hijri. There are other narrations which state that Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu sent Hazrat Khalid bin Said towards Syria at the same time he sent Hazrat Khalid bin Walid towards Iraq. Therefore, the very first flag to be raised for the victory in Syria was that of Hazrat Khalid bin Said. Aside from that, one can learn from another narration that when Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu prepared and sent forth 11 armies to face the apostates, at the same time he instructed Hazrat Khalid bin Said to go to Tema to defend the boundaries of Syria, and he ordered him that do not move from your place, and invite those around you to Islam, and recruit only those who have not become apostates, and only fight those who fight you. And do not move until you receive further instructions from me. Tema is a well-known town between Syria and Medina. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu began preparing Muslims from other areas aside from Medina to combat the Byzantines, and he encouraged them to participate in the jihad. And so he wrote a letter to the people of Yemen, in which it was written that from the Khalifa of the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, to all the Muslims of Yemen, peace be upon all those to whom this is read. I praise Allah before you, besides whom there is no God, and Allah the Almighty has enjoined the Muslims to perform the jihad, instructing them to go forth with this, with either light or full preparations. And Allah the Almighty has stated, وَجَاهِدُوا بِأَمْوَالِكُمْ وَأَنفُسِكُمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. That is, go forth, light and heavy, and strive with your property and your persons in the cause of Allah. Hence, jihad is a compulsory duty which carries a great reward from Allah, and we have instructed the Muslims to prepare to fight against the Byzantines in Syria. Their intentions are good and have a lofty station. So, O servants of Allah, make haste in the duty to your Lord and in the practice of His Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, and in attaining one of the two virtues, either martyrdom or victory in spoils of war. And Allah the Almighty is not pleased with the words of His servants, which they do not implement upon themselves, nor with the forsaking of the jihad against His enemies, until they accept the truth and follow the commandments of the Holy Quran. May Allah protect your religion, guide your hearts, purify your actions, and grant you reward of the patient ones who perform the jihad. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu sent this letter with Hazrat Anas bin Malik. And Hazrat Anas says that I reached Yemen and started notifying each and every neighborhood and tribe. I would read out the letter of Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu to them, and when I would finish doing so, I would say that all praise belongs to Allah, and I bear witness that there is no God besides Allah, and that Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, is his messenger. I am the emissary of the Khalifa of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Muslims. Listen carefully, for I have departed when the Muslims had formed an army, and it's only your arrival in Medina which is holding them up from setting forth to face the enemy. Thus, hurry to your brothers. O Muslims, may Allah have mercy on you. Hazrat Anas then returned to Medina and gave Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu the good news of the arrival of the people, saying that the brave, fearless horse riders of Yemen, whose hair are unkempt and full of dirt, are on their way to you. They have set forth with their wealth, provisions, wives and children. Meanwhile, Hazrat Khalid bin Sayyid had reached Tema and remained there as many people in the surrounding areas had joined him. News of this great Muslim army had reached the Byzantines, and so they requested armies to Syria from the Arabs under their influence. Hazrat Khalid bin Sayyid wrote to Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu about these preparations of the Byzantines. And in response, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu replied that advance and worry not and seek Allah's help. Thereafter, Hazrat Khalid bin Sayyid advanced to the Byzantines, but they dispersed and left their posts when he had reached nearby. Hazrat Khalid bin Sayyid gained control over that area, and the majority of the people who had gathered there became Muslims. Hazrat Khalid bin Sayyid informed Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu of this, so he wrote back instructing him to advance further, but not so much that the enemy has the opportunity to attack from behind. Hazrat Khalid bin Sayyid went forth with the people until they set up camp in an area. There, a Byzantine priest by the name Bahan came there to combat them. Hazrat Khalid bin Sayyid defeated him and killed many of his army, causing Bahan to flee to Damascus to seek refuge. Hazrat Khalid bin Sayyid then informed Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu of this and requested reinforcements. At the time, the people of Yemen who set forth to initially fight in Syria had reached Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and likewise people from the areas between Yemen and Mecca had also arrived. Among them was also Hazrat Zulkila, and after successfully completing his battle against the apostates, Hazrat Ikrimah also returned to Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, along with people from various regions. With regards to all these people, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wrote to those who had been appointed to collect sadaqat, i.e. alms, and stated that those who would like to be replaced should be replaced. It so happened that everyone wished to be replaced, and so a new army was formed in their place. And for this reason, this army came to be known as Jayshul Bidal. These armies arrived to where Hazrat Khalid bin Sayyid was staying. And even after that, Hazrat Abu Bakr continued to encourage people to go to battle in Syria. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu commanded Hazrat Walid bin Uqbah to set out for Syria, where Hazrat Khalid bin Sayyid was stationed. And when he reached Hazrat Khalid bin Sayyid, he informed him that the people of Medina are longing to come to the aid of their brothers, and that Hazrat Abu Bakr is preparing forces. Upon hearing this, Hazrat Khalid bin Sayyid could not contain his happiness, for he thought that their victory against the Byzantines would be led by him. Thus, he set forth along with Hazrat Walid bin Uqbah with the intention to launch an attack on the great Byzantine army, which was under the commandship of Bahan. And whilst in his pursuit to attack the Byzantines, Hazrat Khalid bin Sayyid neglected the instruction of Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu to not advance so far forward that the enemy finds an opportunity to attack from the rear. In any case, he became distracted from protecting his rear, and before other commanders could arrive, he commenced war with the Byzantines. Bahan and his men went towards Damascus. However, Bahan's retreat was in fact a plot to surround the Muslims and attack them from behind. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu had warned them of this danger. However, Hazrat Khalid bin Said's passion for victory led him to neglect this warning from the Khalifa of the time and advance forward. Hazrat Khalid bin Said continued to penetrate deeper into the enemy forces. At the time, he was accompanied by Hazrat Walid bin Uqba, Hazrat Zulqila, and Hazrat Ikrimah. The army forces and guards of Bahan surrounded Hazrat Khalid bin Said and blocked their way out. However, Hazrat Khalid was oblivious to this. Subsequently, Bahan advanced towards them and found Said, Hazrat Khalid's son, searching for water, and so he killed him and all those with him. When Hazrat Khalid bin Said received news that his son and his companions had been martyred, he took a battalion of horse riders and fled. And so instead of contending in battle, he chose to leave. Following this, many others also mounted their horses and camels and left the army. After being defeated, Khalid came to Zul Marwa, and all the while Hazrat Ikrimah did not move from his post and continued to help the Muslims. Zul Marwa is a place between Mecca and Medina and is approximately 96 miles from Medina. Hazrat Ikrimah prevented Bahan and his forces from pursuing Hazrat Khalid. When news of this reached Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he became very displeased with Hazrat Khalid and did not permit him to enter into Medina. Albeit after being allowed to enter Medina, he sought forgiveness for what he did from Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. But despite Hazrat Khalid bin Said's failure, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu's determination and strength was absolutely unfaltering. When they received news that Hazrat Ikrimah and Hazrat Zulqila have saved the Muslim forces from the Byzantines' trap and have brought them back to the borders of Syria where they are awaiting reinforcements, Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu arranged for reinforcements to be sent without delay. And in respect to this, Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq prepared 4 large armies which were sent to different regions of Syria, the details of which are as follows. The first army was under the leadership of Yazid bin Abi Sufyan. He was the brother of Hazrat Muawiyah and was one of the most excellent men amongst the family of Abu Sufyan. This was the first amongst the 4 armies sent forth to Syria as reinforcements. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu appointed Hazrat Yazid bin Abi Sufyan as the commander of this army, and he was tasked with conquering Damascus upon his arrival there, and also with helping the 3 other armies when needed. In the beginning, this army was 3,000 men strong, after which Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu sent more reinforcements, increasing their number to 7,000. Suhail bin Amr and others from Mecca of high stature were part of this army under the command of Hazrat Yazid bin Abi Sufyan. And in the era of ignorance, Suhail bin Amr was among the most superior people and learned chieftains of the Quraysh. And on the occasion of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, he came as a representative on behalf of the Quraysh to make a treaty with the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. He accepted Islam at the conquest of Mecca. When Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was tying a flag for Hazrat Yazid bin Abi Sufyan, he also called for Rabi'a bin Amir and tied a flag for him, saying that go forth with Yazid bin Abi Sufyan and do not be disobedient to him, nor oppose him. Following this, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu addressed Hazrat Yazid bin Abi Sufyan and said, if you find it suitable to give Rabi'a bin Amir charge of your lead battalion, then surely do so, for he is counted amongst the best horsemen of Arabia and the most pious of your people. And I too believe him to be a pious servant of Allah. Upon this, Hazrat Yazid said that your positive opinion and belief about him has increased my love for him. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu then followed to walk beside them on foot, upon which Hazrat Yazid submitted that, O Khalifa of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, I request that either you take a mount as well, or allow me to walk beside you, for I cannot allow myself to ride a mount while you walk. Upon this, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu stated that I will not take a mount, and nor will you dismount, for I take these steps only for the sake of Allah. Then, whilst advising Hazrat Yazid, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said, O Yazid, I admonish you to be righteous, to obey Allah, to offer sacrifices for His sake, and to remain fearful of Him. When you come face to face with the enemy, and Allah grants you victory over them, do not be deceitful, and nor mutilate them. In other words, do not disfigure their corpses. Do not break your covenant, do not show cowardice, and do not kill any small child, no elderly person or woman, and do not burn or ravage date palms, and do not cut down any fruit trees. Furthermore, do not kill any animal except that it is for consumption. In other words, do not kill any animal needlessly. He further stated that you will come across a people who have dedicated themselves to Allah in their churches. Leave them be, and that which they have dedicated their lives to. In other words, the monks and priests in the churches should not be harmed. He further stated that you will also come across a people whose heads are shaven by Satan from the center. The middle of their heads would appear as though a sparrow has dug a ditch in the ground to lay eggs. In another narration, it is also recorded that you will find a people who shave their heads from the middle, and they would have left strips of hair on all four sides. Thus, strike their heads where they have shaven their hair with your swords. There are a few narrations regarding these people who the Muslims were commanded to kill. It is said that this was a Christian faction comprising not of priests, but of religious leaders who would incite others to wage war against Muslims. They would also take part in war themselves, and for this reason Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu stated that the priests who are in their churches should not be harmed at all. However, the Muslims should fight against such people who incite conflict and wage war and their followers for the reason that they are enemies in battle and they instigate war. And Hazrat Abu Bakr emphasized to this extent that he said, fight against those people until they either accept Islam or have no other choice but to pay jizya. And whoso helps Allah and His Messenger, peace be upon him, will be helped by Allah the Almighty through means that are unseen. And I bid you peace and give you over to Allah. Then in another narration, further instructions are mentioned. It is written that Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu stated to Hazrat Yazid bin Abi Sufyan that I have appointed you as the governor, so that I may test you and train you by sending you to another place. If you discharge your responsibilities in an excellent manner, then I shall appoint you once again for this task and enable you to excel further. However, if you show negligence, then I shall remove you from your office. Adhere to taqwa, i.e. righteousness, and Allah is aware of your inner conditions just as He is aware of your outer state. He then stated that amongst the people, those who are closest to Allah are those who do the greatest justice to their bond of friendship with Allah. And the person who is closest to Allah amongst the people is one who attains his nearness through his conduct. I have appointed you in place of Khalid bin Said. Thus refrain from harboring malice, for Allah is most displeased by this, and the one who acts in this manner. And when you reach your army, treat them well and in a kind manner. Promise them of prosperity, and when you advise them, do so in a brief manner, because lengthy talks cause one to forget many things. Keep yourself reformed, and people themselves will reform for you. In other words, if a leader remains reformed, then people will also act in the correct manner. And offer your prayers at their prescribed time whilst performing all the ruku and sujood, i.e. bowing and prostrations, and perform them with fervency and humility. When the enemy's representatives come to you, treat them with dignity. When an emissary comes, he should be treated in a respectful manner. Let them only stay for a brief period of time so that they do not spend too much time with your army, and thus they will not be able to acquire information about them. This was also part of the strategy, that to not allow the emissaries to stay for long and to quickly see them off. Do not allow them to gather information about your wealth, for they will learn of any deficiencies you may have and gather information about you. Keep them in the midst of your soldiers, and do not let them speak to the people. And when you speak to them, do not reveal your secrets. Otherwise, this will ruin all of your plans. And whenever you wish to seek advice, speak the truth, and you will receive the correct advice. And do not conceal your information from your advisors. Otherwise, you will incur loss owing to your own fault. This is also a principle that when one seeks advice from somebody, then they should mention all the finer details of the matter, so that they can give the correct advice and reduce the potential of incurring any loss. Speak to your friends in the night, and you will be able to gather a lot of information. If you gather information in the night, you will be able to acquire insight into a lot of hidden matters. Ensure that you have a lot of men assigned in the battalion that has been appointed for the purpose of defense, and spread them out amongst the army. You should often inspect their military posts without informing them from before, and if you find any post unattended, you should admonish that person, but do not take any extreme measures whilst handing out punishment. Assign a rota for them to cover the nights, and keep the shift which is in the earlier part of the night longer than the one in the latter part of the night. This is because the earlier shift is easier to do, owing to it being closer to the day. The duty which starts in the early part of the night should be longer, because it's easier to stay awake in that part of the night, and the duty in the latter part of the night should be shorter. Do not be scared to hand out punishment to one who is deserving of it, and nor show leniency. And do not be hasty in giving out punishment, but neither become negligent. Do not become neglectful of your army, for they will start to weaken, and also do not humiliate them by spying upon them. Do not mention their confidential information to people. Be content with the way they are, and do not sit with useless people, rather sit with those who are truthful and loyal. Stand firm and resolute when you engage in combat with the enemy, and do not show cowardice, otherwise people will also follow suit. Do not be dishonest in matters relating to the spoils of war, for such an act takes one closer to becoming dependent upon others and prevents one from victory and success. You will also find some people who have devoted themselves in the service of the church, so let them be and allow them to continue their practice which they have occupied themselves in. Thus, this is a complete plan of action which is important for every leader and office bearer to implement. After this, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu took the hand of Hazrat Yazid, and whilst bidding him farewell, stated that you are the first person who I have appointed as an Amir over the preeminent Muslims. These people are not of a lowly status, and nor are they weak, ignoble, or extremist in religious matters. Therefore, you ought to treat them well, and show kindness and compassion to them, and do take advice from them in all important matters. Treat them kindly, and may Allah enable them to treat you with kindness as well, and may Allah the Almighty grant me help in fulfilling my responsibilities as the Khalifa. Thereafter, Hazrat Yazid took his army and left for Syria. Every day, after the Fajr and Asr prayer, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu would pray that, O Allah, you created us while we were non-existent. Then, out of your mercy and grace, you sent us a messenger and granted us guidance while we had gone astray. You instilled the love of faith in our hearts while we were disbelievers, and we were few in number, and you increased us. We were disunited, and you brought us together, and we were weak, and you granted us strength. You then made jihad incumbent upon us, and instructed us to fight against the idolaters until they declared that there is none worthy of worship except Allah, and paid the jizya. They were left with no other choice. Either they accepted Islam, or then they had to pay the jizya. O Allah, we seek your pleasure through this jihad against the enemy, who associated partners with you and worshipped idols instead of worshipping you. O Allah, there is none worthy of worship except you, and your status is far loftier than what these unjust people assert. O Allah, grant help to your Muslim servants against the idolatrous enemy. O Allah, grant them an easy victory and help them immensely. Grant courage to those among them who have less courage, and enable them to remain resolute. Cause their enemy to stumble, and their hearts to be overawed, and destroy them. Uproot them, and destroy their lands, and enable us to take possession of their land, homes, wealth, and belongings. Become our friend and bestower of grace, rectify our affairs, and enable us to become among those who are grateful in order to partake of your blessings. Forgive us, and also the believing men and believing women, and the Muslim men and the Muslim women, whether they are alive or have passed away. May Allah enable us and them to remain resolute on the truth in this world and in the hereafter. Indeed, He is most benevolent and merciful to His believers. The second army was under the command of Shurahbil bin Hasana. Hazrat Shurahbil bin Hasana's father's name was Abdullah bin Muta, and his mother's name was Hasana. His title was Abu Abdullah. Hazrat Shurahbil's father passed away in his childhood, and so he was known by his mother's name as Shurahbil bin Hasana. Hazrat Shurahbil was among the early converts to Islam, and he was a famous army commander during the era of Khilafat-e-Rashida. He passed away in 18 Hijri at the age of 67. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu appointed the departure date for Hazrat Shurahbil bin Hasana 3 days after the departure of Hazrat Yazid bin Abi Sufyan. When the third day passed, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu bid Hazrat Shurahbil farewell and stated, O Shurahbil, have you not heard the advice I imparted to Yazid bin Abi Sufyan? He replied that I certainly did. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu stated that implement the advice I have already given, and I shall also advise you about those things which I forgot to mention to Yazid. I advise you to offer your prayers on time and remain resolute during the battle till you are granted victory or attain martyrdom. I also advise you to visit the sick, attend the funerals, and to remain occupied in the remembrance of Allah in every situation. Abu Sufyan submitted that Yazid already adheres to these qualities, and even before leaving Syria, he has been implementing upon these, and now he will adopt them even more than before, inshallah. Hazrat Shurahbil replied that I seek help from Allah, and whatever Allah wills shall happen. He then took leave from Hazrat Abu Bakr and then left for Syria with his army. Hazrat Shurahbil had an army comprising around 3,000 to 4,000, and he was instructed to go to Tabuk and Balqa and then head towards Busra, and that would be their final destination. Busra is an ancient and well-known city of Syria. Hazrat Shurahbil departed towards Balqa, and there was no notable battle fought as such. Balqa is also situated in Syria, and they reached Balqa while his army marched to the left of Hazrat Abu Ubaida's army and to the right of Amr bin al-As's army. They entered Balqa and then headed towards Busra and surrounded the city. However, they could not attain victory, as this was one of the most secure and fortified centers of the Byzantines. The third army was under the command of Abu Ubaidah bin al-Jarrah. Hazrat Abu Ubaidah bin al-Jarrah's name was Amir bin Abdullah, and his father's name was Abdullah bin Jarrah. Hazrat Abu Ubaidah was more commonly known by his title, and his lineage was attributed by his grandfather's name Jarrah. Hazrat Abu Ubaidah was among those 10 companions who were given the glad tidings of paradise by the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, in his lifetime, and are known as the Ashra Mubashara. He passed away in 18 Hijri at the age of 58. The third army, which Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu sent to Syria, as I mentioned, was led by Hazrat Abu Ubaidah. He was sent to Hims, and Hims is an old Syrian city located near Damascus and was a large city. Hazrat Abu Ubaidah's army numbered 7,000, whereas according to another narration, his army numbered between 3,000 to 4,000. Along the way, Hazrat Abu Ubaidah passed by a town in Balqa called Ma'ab, and this was not a conventional city, but was a tent city. A battle occurred between him and the people there, but later the people there requested peace, upon which he formed a treaty with them. And this was the very first treaty formed in Syria. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu also sent Qais bin Hubayra along with Hazrat Abu Ubaidah. And it was regarding him that Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu advised Hazrat Abu Ubaidah and stated that you are accompanied by one of the most honored and esteemed riders of Arabia. When it comes to jihad, I do not think there is anyone more well-intentioned than him. The Muslims cannot disregard his opinion, counsel, or might in battle. Keep him close to you and treat him with kindness and benevolence. Make sure that he does not feel disregarded by you, and this will afford you his well wishes, and he will be on your side in striving to combat the enemy. When Hazrat Abu Ubaidah left, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu called Qais bin Hubayra and stated that I am sending you with Abu Ubaidah, the trustee of the nation. If he is wronged, he never wrongs anyone in return, and if he is mistreated, he forgives. And if a bond is broken with him, then he strives to re-establish it. He is merciful towards the believers and staunch in opposition to the disbelievers. Do not disobey him, and he will only command that which is best. I have instructed him to listen to what you say, therefore give him advice whilst fearing Allah. We heard that during the era of idolatry and ignorance, you were the foremost in your experience in battle, at a time of ignorance where there was sin and disbelief. And now, having accepted Islam, use your strength and bravery to combat the disbelievers who associate partners with Allah. For doing so, Allah the Almighty has established a great reward for you and for the Muslims, and also honor and victory. Upon hearing this guidance, Qais bin Hubayra said that if you are alive and I am also alive, you will receive such news of me protecting the Muslims and undertaking jihad against the disbelievers, which you will like and will make you happy. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said that only someone like you could do this. When Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was informed about the manner in which he fought against two commanders in Jabiyah and how he had killed them, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu stated that Qais kept true to his promise. There are some details that remain, which will continue to be mentioned in the future. At this time, I wish to mention about a martyr, Nasir Ahmad Sahib, son of Abdul Ghani Sahib. He lived in Rabwa, Darul Rahmat Shirki. And on the 12th August, an opponent of the community stabbed and martyred him. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Verily to Allah we belong, and to Him shall we return. According to the reports, Nasir Ahmad Sahib was at the bus stop with one of his friends who was selling newspapers when a religious fanatic named Hafiz Shehzad Hassan arrived and asked whether he was an Ahmadi. Nasir Ahmad Sahib replied saying that I am from the Ahmadiyya community, upon which this person demanded that he openly declare his renouncement of the community. When he refused, the man took a knife out of a bag and whilst raising slogans, he attacked Nasir Ahmad Sahib. He stabbed him numerous times, so much so that within a few seconds, these wounds proved to be fatal. He was unable to recover from the multiple stab wounds and was thus martyred. At the time of his martyrdom, he was 62 years old. And after the incident, in his statement, the murderer said that he had no remorse for what he did and that given the opportunity, he would do the same thing again. This entire incident took place in a minute or two, in fact within just a minute, and it is reported that he was taken to the hospital within 2 to 3 minutes after that. However, this is what Allah had decreed, and the wounds proved to be fatal, and he attained the status of martyrdom. Ahmadiyyat was established in the deceased martyr's family through his paternal grandfather, respected Feroz Deen Sahib of Raipur, district Sialkot, who did the Bai'at and entered the fold of Ahmadiyyat in 1935 during the era of the second Khalifa. He did not study beyond his primary education and instead began working in his family business of farming. He also left the country for some time and went to Malaysia where he worked, and after which he returned to Pakistan. 10 years ago he moved from Raipur, district Sialkot to Rabwa, and he had not been working these days as he was also a heart patient. He would spend most of his time in service to the Jamaat in his local area, and he had currently been serving in the Majlis Ansarullah as Muntazim Ansar and as a collector for the finance department. He possessed many great qualities, and he would help everyone in his local area and was especially always ready to help the orphans and the poor. He also took special care to clean the mosque. He was extremely trustworthy, hardworking, sociable, and a brave person. He had some difficulty walking due to a fracture in his leg, but despite this, whenever he would be called at night by the Jamaat for security duty, he would always go. He would regularly listen to the Friday sermon and was also regular in offering prayers, and would also keep a record of this with regards to the members of his local area. He had a profound love for Khilafat, and it was part of his daily routine that after the Fajr prayer, he would listen to the recitation of the Holy Quran on his mobile phone for an hour. He would also go to the cemetery Bahishti Maqbara almost every day to pray. And the president of the local area says that whenever he was called upon for Jamaat work, the deceased martyr would always be present, and there was never an instance in which he refused. The deceased daughter, Mubaraka Sahiba, says that a few days before his martyrdom, he saw a dream that there was a large group of people that had gathered, and the atmosphere was one of grief. Upon seeing this, he gave sadaqah, and since some time he had been expressing that he felt his time was drawing near. He is survived by his wife Parveen Akhtar Sahiba and 3 daughters. May Allah the Almighty grant them all patience and steadfastness. His brother Tanveer Akhtar Sahib says that although he did not have much of secular education or knowledge about the Jamaat, but he had great pride for the community and love for Khilafat since his childhood. He was a simple-hearted and selfless person and would be happy in seeing other people be happy. And on the occasions of Eid, when he would come home from Lahore, he would bring home many things to eat and drink, and would have nice new clothes made which he would only wear on Eid. He states that because I am a life devotee, he would give the clothes to me and would take my old clothes. His nephew says that he would always keep his phone with him because he thought that anyone from the community could need his help, and if he did not have his phone, then they would not be able to contact him. And even if his phone rang at night, he would immediately get ready to serve the community. Even if he had to go to the ends of Rabwa, he would do so. He would always be ready to donate blood, and in this way he saved many lives. He never cared for his own heart ailment, and he felt it was his moral obligation to help those in need, and he always gave precedence to them over his own illness. May Allah the Almighty elevate his station and grant him a lofty rank in paradise. And may Allah the Almighty be the protector and helper of his family and enable them to carry on his virtues. I will lead his funeral prayer in absentia after the Friday prayer, inshallah.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر